Man. Well, it can only go up from here, right? All good. Well, whatever you guys are walking through this week, whether it was what we just walked through, if that was the worst thing that happened to you this week, or whatever happened to you in the last 7 days, I pray that you were able to leave that at the door. I know that the devil can cloud our minds. We did a sermon series like that in youth group a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was a couple months ago. Quarantine has made it really difficult. But we did this sermon series about the devil and how he can add things to your brain and he can distract you. And this was a prime example of that. So whether it was this, don't let this be a distraction to how the Holy Spirit talks to you today. Don't let whatever happened in the last 7 days or whatever life experiences God or the devil or whomever is throwing at you. I pray you can give God a blank slate today. And that's not to say to forget everything that he's walked you through or that he is walking you through. I'm not saying that. I am saying just try and give God a chance today, because obviously the devil gave us 10,000 reasons why we shouldn't give God a chance today. Maybe this is your first time here. Or maybe this is the first time like you're really wanting to get into church. Or maybe your friend honestly just dragged you here because somebody was going to preach today and they were like, hey, you should come with me. So give God a shot. Because no matter what, you can keep turning your back on God, but God's never going to turn his back on you. So keep that in your memory today. Also, one more thing. Posture yourself as we begin to worship. Maddie's back. So as we begin to worship our God today, let me tell you this. I believe that the best things in this life aren't necessarily things that happen, but they're feelings. The best thing in life, like, might be great, like when you give birth to your first child, or when you get married, or something. But it's a feeling. So feel something today. There are people, by the way, sitting in the back. There's like a light back there. That's our prayer corner. There's always pastors back there. So if you don't really know what you're feeling, or if you're too distracted, we're going to be back there to pray for you guys. So if we're ready, get ready to feel the Holy Spirit. So thanks for your patience today.
All right, ready? Are we sure we're ready?
Hey, y'all.
All right.
Okay.
Sweet, ready?
Because this song means a whole lot more right now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I can see the clouds rolling. I can hear the winds, they try to shake me. I will not be moved. My feet are on the rock. I can feel the waters rise. I can hear the howling lies that haunt me. You won't hold me now. My feet are on the rock. Sing it out. When I feel my hope about to break, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Let the waters come and the earth give way. I'll be dancing in the rain. My feet are on the rock. Ooh. I can see the morning light. I can feel the joy on the horizon. Here my faith is found. I'll stand on solid ground. When I feel my hope about to break, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Yeah. Let the waters come and the earth give way. I'll be dancing in the rain. My feet are on the rock. Ooh. Rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. So stomp your feet and clap your hands. Our feet are on the rock. On Christ's solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. So stomp your feet, clap your hands. Our feet are on the rock. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. So stomp your feet, clap your hands, our feet are on the rock. When I feel my hope about to break, I will stomp him out. Amen to that. All right. Don't lose that energy. keep standing, y'all. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Amen, y'all. And now your freedom is all that I know. The old man knew Jesus when I met you. And when you called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. Tell us about it. Keep going, y'all.
I needed rescue, my sin was heavy. The chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, let's hear you. I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day.
Awesome.
Dude, Susan,
Dude.
between the first and second song when you said, way to stomp it out, that was you, right? Yeah, that was beautiful. Way to stomp it out, you guys. Great job, great job. All right, now we have come to the time in our service, we're a little behind, but that's okay. We have come to the time in our service where we are going to let our children go to their class. So if we can bring the house lights up, we are very excited about that. I didn't leave you time for cheer, but we can cheer later. It's okay. Woo, good job. Thanks, Mom. But I'm not a kid anymore, so I gotta sit here. Anyways, if you've got a kid with a little white tag, you can meet them with our head of security in the back, and we're gonna take care of them just to make sure that, again, distractions. We love our kids, but they learn a little bit differently than us, right? Because their brains are a little bit different. So as we learn and hear from Shannon today, they're going to learn from Sarah back in their hallway, and then go ahead and pick them up. Now, if you are a parent online, we see you, we hear you, we love you, and we feel you. If you go to The Point, where's Eric? The Point, WH.org. You can see all of the children's sermons right there. So if you're watching online and your kids don't want to watch with you today, that's really cool. Sarah's put some awesome videos on there as well. So while we wait for Shannon to come up here and get ready, why don't you guys turn to your neighbor, meet somebody new, and if you celebrate Halloween, let me know your Halloween costume. Or actually, let your neighbor know what your Halloween costume is going to be, because we have an outdoor trick-or-treating event here next Sunday night, so you gotta be prepared. Cool, thanks.
Good morning, Point Church. How are we doing this morning? Are you guys ready for today? I hope so. So my name is Shannon Hine. I am the Director of Connections here at The Point, and today is a big day, you guys. Today we kick off our all-church study, okay? Whoop, whoop. Can I get a yay for that? And our fall session of life groups is also kicking off this week. So if you are not in a life group, now is the time. I am so excited to be here with you today, bringing you the very first message in this series, Thriving in Babylon. I could not be more excited about this, one, because I'm the Director of Connections, and so therefore I love seeing people connect and get in a life group, because I myself know how drastically life-changing that can be for you. And then also, because this book right here, Thriving in Babylon, I am now reading it for my second time, and I hate to read. So that's how good it is. This is an incredible book. It is life-changing. If it doesn't change your life, it is definitely going to give you some nuggets to put in your pocket to carry along life with you, and it's going to help you through some incredible things in life. If you are A, not in a life group, or B, you don't have this book yet, come out and see me in the foyer after service, and I will ensure that you get in a life group and you get a book. You're not gonna wanna miss this. So what I wanna do today is I wanna talk to you about how do we not just survive, okay? How do we not just survive, but thrive in a godless culture? And what I wanna do today is I wanna wrestle with the question of how do we stand firm, okay? How do we stand firm when bad things happen? Because bad things are gonna happen, guys. If you've walked through this life and nothing bad's ever happened to you, I got news for you, it will. So how do you stand firm when bad things happen, and how do you thrive and not just survive in a godless culture? And I believe with all of my heart and soul that the content over the next few messages really could impact your life in a very significant way. Because when we thrive, we are able to live out the purpose and the plans that God has planned for us. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna start a little bit deep, okay? So self-absorbed, violent, twisted, godless, okay? Those are only a few words that I might use or that we might use to describe the culture that we live in today, right? When you can go to bed, literally go to bed one night and wake up, and the next morning your whole entire world is different. Now, all of us can understand this because, in my opinion, we're kind of living in this as an American culture now. Let me say this up front, okay? For those of you that are like freaked out by political stuff, I don't want to get political. I won't get political. I will stay as far away from that as possible. But I will say this. The last couple of decades, it's felt like our culture has increasingly gotten darker and darker and darker. There are times when, if I'm honest, I'm fatigued by watching the news, that there are seasons of my life where if I'm being honest here, and I am, I've gotten numb to the cycle that we go through, which is a natural disaster happens. An earthquake, a hurricane, or tornado. We see it and it's like we're callous towards it. It's like we've seen it so much, but we feel like we need to respond, right? So we throw up something on Instagram or whatever your social media platform might be, like hashtag pray for Florida, hashtag pray for Louisiana. When we see these things happening, we're fatigued by it so much. And then there's the shootings. There's the shootings that happen, and it's happened so often that if we're just honest, it's like it breaks our heart, but we're just kind of used to it at this point. And then there's all the mess in the political world, and is anybody else just tired of it all? Of all of it? Does it kind of just wear you out? Maybe you're like so many people that you just kind of tuned out the news. Maybe you're like me and you just stopped watching the news. You'd rather just turn a blind eye to it rather than have to deal with it. It's a far cry from Eden. In the last 20 years alone, we've not only seen our traditional biblical values thrown out the window, but we've also mourned the loss of innocent people from the injustices of terrorism, mass shootings, and human trafficking. Think about all the changes that have happened in our ever-changing culture. Evil has forever been here, so don't get me wrong. It has forever been here. Don't believe it? Read the Bible. Evil has forever been here. But now we kind of deal with the fact about we can't even let our kids go out in the front yard without even worrying. Growing up, I remember running the neighborhood, heck, running the entire town. We would just run around the entire town until the street lights came on. And now human trafficking is something that is always in the back of my mind as I let my precious little girls play outside in the neighborhood. It just is. Our culture is changing at warp speed, and this has left many of us confused, discouraged, and fearful. Am I talking to anyone else here today? If you're watching online, throw it in the comments that you get this. Or is this just me? So how can we maintain faith in such a post-Christian culture? Where is God in all of this? Can we still trust him? Where's God in my life when I face pain, injustice, and hostility? And so over the next 5 weeks, we will look at the life of Daniel. Daniel, you guys, is an incredible dude. I'm telling you. You've probably heard Daniel's story of rescue from the lion's den. But did you know that the city of Babylon, where he was forced to live. He did not choose to go there. He was forced to live there. It was like a lion's den of its own. It was wicked and it was dark. Daniel not only survived in the godless culture of Babylon, he thrived by the power of God. And today, my hope is that you will leave here knowing how you too can thrive in a godless culture with faith, hope, trust, humility, and wisdom. For the last few months, I have been doing kind of a deep dive into the book of Daniel and into his life, and I have literally been blown away by this guy and with the incredible, helpful principles for how to live in a Babylon world like ours. So just a little bit about Daniel so you guys can know just a little bit about him. Daniel was living every man's young dream, okay, in the ancient world, and his whole world literally changed overnight. Does anybody in here remember March 12th, 2020? The exact date. I remember the exact date because it was my daughter's birthday. She was turning 2, and we had our home filled with people celebrating her day, and we went to bed, and we woke up, and all of a sudden, our entire lives were changed. No more work, no more school, no more church, no more hugs. Everything changed just like that. And when I read Daniel's story, I'm like, okay, quarantine is not so bad. You see, he was 16 years old. He was kidnapped and brought to Babylon, the most evil of all places. Now, to understand the world in which he lived, you need to understand this. The Bible, especially the Old Testament, it spans about 4,000 years, okay? You see, from creation to the book of Genesis, from the book of Genesis to Jesus, there's about 4,000 years. The last 400 years before Jesus is born, we know that those are called the silent years. It's like God didn't speak, and then Jesus came, and then God shouts his name and makes it famous because it's Jesus. And Daniel lives about 200 years before that 400 years of silence. Daniel is a prophet. Daniel is one of the major prophets. Now, something to know is there's major prophets and there's minor prophets. It doesn't mean one's better than the other. It just means their book in the Bible is longer. And so Daniel is one of the major prophets of 12 chapters. The first 6 chapters are all about the history. In these 6 chapters, you hear the stories that you probably heard growing up in Sunday school, or let's be honest, Veggie Tales, right? In the story of Daniel in the lion's den, or the story of God writing on the wall, or the story of the 3 Hebrew children being thrown into the fiery furnaces, the book of Daniel, and I need you to remember this as we're talking about this, the book of Daniel is not a diary, okay? It's a memoir. It's written after the fact, and it's literally a roadmap for us on how to not just survive in a godless culture, but how to thrive, okay? So that's just a little bit of history on everything. So let's go ahead and just dive in, and we're gonna start in Daniel, right at the beginning, verse 1, chapter 1. And there's this unbelievable moment where Daniel goes to bed one night and he wakes up the next day and his whole world is forever shaken, and here's why. Daniel chapter 1, verse 1 says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, next first Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem to besiege it." Now, Babylon, for some context for you, is modern day Iraq, okay? So whatever you visualize when you think of Babylon, I want you to picture Iraq. Because sometimes we read the Bible and read about these stories like Babylon doesn't exist anymore, but it's modern day Iraq. So whatever you picture of Iraq to be, that is what's happening in Babylon. And the Babylonian Empire comes and they take over, they besiege, they attack the people of Israel, and they make them their slaves. They make them their captives. And this is known as the season of exile for the people of Israel. Now, a little bit about Nebuchadnezzar. Let's talk about Nebi for a minute. This dude is evil and totally pagan. Nebuchadnezzar was the king at the time. He was an evil king. I mean, the kind of evil that much of our modern day depictions of Satan are of this guy. The whore of Babylon, you may have heard him be called. Nebuchadnezzar the destroyer. I cannot understate how bad this dude was. And why is he so important to us today? And is that he is the one that God allowed to destroy the city of Jerusalem, which was the holy city of God's people, right? And this guy, he was so evil. He didn't just destroy the city, okay? But he literally burned the temple of God. And then to add insult to injury, he went into their temple and took basically their religious symbols and crushed them, destroyed them, burned them, as if to say, the worship of your God, your Yahweh, is so obsolete. I'm taking out anything that even matters remotely close to your worship of the one who you say is the one true God. And then not only did he just destroy the city and the temple, all the religious symbols, but to make it even worse, he basically says, I'm not just going to destroy your future, I'm also going to destroy your present. So that's a little background so you can understand the extent of evil that was going on. And so then in verse 2, we'll go to verse 2, it says this strange phrase. Verse 2, and the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. So the Lord delivered to Nebuchadnezzar not only Jerusalem, but a bunch of holy things from the temple that Nebuchadnezzar took back and then put into the temple of his God as a way of mocking our great and our powerful God. Now, the key to all of the rest of Daniel, you guys, is found in that little phrase, the Lord delivered. Remember, Daniel is writing a memoir. He's not writing it as he's going along in his terrible life there in Babylon. He's looking back at what happened and what God did, and he says, you know what? To understand all of my responses, to understand my attitude, to understand why I did what I did, you need to understand that not just the foundation, but the absolute cornerstone of everything that was in my mind, and it was this, that God is in control of who's in control. That even when the wicked succeed like Nebuchadnezzar did, God is not surprised. He's not up in heaven wondering what to do, calling on Gabriel and all the other angels to help him out with some sort of plan B. So with that information, I really need you guys to grasp and to understand just how wicked and evil Babylon was. It was the personification of all evil in the eyes of the angels. In fact, in Revelations tells us in Revelations 14:8, when Jesus Christ returned, the angels are going to shout, fallen, fallen is Babylon. Now, why do they cry that? Why didn't they cry, fallen, fallen is Nazi Germany? Fallen, fallen is Sin City. Fallen, fallen is Iraq or ISIS. It's because God knows that in all of history, the most wicked of wicked that they ever experienced was Babylon. God is in control of who's in control, even when Nebuchadnezzar has his heyday, as we're going to see in this series and in our time together as we walk through thriving in Babylon in the book of Daniel. That is the one principle that we want to keep deeply set into our hearts and our minds, is God is always, always in control of who's in control. He's never confused, he's never frustrated, he's never surprised. He's always in control, and therein lies the foundational cornerstones of Daniel's attitude, Daniel's actions, Daniel's survival, and Daniel's thriving in Babylon. And the cornerstone we must build in our life as well if we're going to thrive in our modern day Babylon. To all of us, Christian or not, Jesus affirms that reality in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5:45 when he says that God makes his sun rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the just and the unjust. But why does God do that? Doesn't he care about our attempts to do good? You know, one of the great conundrums or mysteries of the Bible is how in the world the innocent can get caught in the backwash of God's judgment upon the wicked, but that's exactly what happens. We often think that, well, if God's in control of the situation, or if God is watching over me, well, then only good things are going to happen to me, or if bad things do, they're going to be because I brought them up on myself. But we get caught even when we're in the innocent, even when we're innocent, in the backwash of God's judgment on others, and that's exactly what happened to Daniel. Daniel was a godly man and a godly young kid who was faithful, respectful, and so much more, and yet when God's judgment upon the nation of Israel came, Daniel and his 3 friends and the other nobles, they were taken in, and they were taken as captives and kidnapped and ended up finding themselves in Babylon through no fault of their own. Yet every single time we find ourselves caught in that kind of situation as a nation or as individuals, we're shocked. We're just shocked that anything like this could happen. And yet Daniel is a great, great story, illustration that yes, it can. It can happen. And when it does, and when it happens, exactly what are we supposed to do with it? You guys, the order of judgment is not what we expect. We would expect God's judgment to begin with the wicked, right? And if God is going to come in judgment, my thought would, on my own, it would be that if God is going to start with the worst of the worst. And yet that's not been his pattern. It's not been his pattern. He always starts with his own. He always starts with his family. And we've got in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12:6, the teaching that God disciplines those who are his own. There's a prophet named, you guys are going to laugh at me when I try and say Habakkuk, help me out. Habakkuk, whatever, close enough. In the Old Testament, he was just completely confused because he saw the rise in the Assyrians off in the distance, and he saw them having great success after great success. And they were marching inevitably towards Jerusalem, and he could tell what was going to happen, and so he cries out to God, and he says, why in the world are you doing this? We are in need of judgment. We've messed up big time, but we are nowhere near as bad as these people. And God tells him this. He says, yes, I know. And I will deal with them later. But for now, I'm using them to come down upon you so that you as my people will learn a lesson. Because God is so much more concerned about our ultimate holiness than he is about our current happiness. Daniel realizes this whole sense of getting caught in the backwash and others and how we're so interconnected in a famous prayer that you can read in Daniel chapter 9, where over 25 times, and remember, this is after the fact, after he's been through all the hell that he has been through. Over 25 times he talks about, Lord, we have sinned. Lord, we deserve what is happening to us. And yet you're Daniel, and here's this guy that you can't find any sins on him. You can't find anything that he did, that he had committed in his life, but he understood God's judgment begins with the family. And if you're part of the family and the family's been messing up, you and I can get caught in that backwash. If you're part of a fallen world that God hasn't come to put in final judgment upon, and you're part of the fallen, where he's waiting so that more will come to him, then you and I can get caught in the midst of that backwash. It's a tough thing, and it's a terribly difficult experience, but it should never be one that surprises us. We don't know what God's doing at this time in our history. There are times where I think perhaps what he's doing is he's separating the herd. Sometimes that's what I think he's doing. I think he's separating the genuine from the bogus. And that's what he's doing, and he's setting the stage for his great plan of his. Remember what happened in China? Does anybody remember the time when missionaries were kicked out and everybody wrung their hands and they thought, oh my gosh, this is a horrible, horrible thing. And what God was doing was letting sin have its day, and the end result was spiritual hunger in China that was far greater than it was when the missionaries were there. Same with COVID. The church is growing, and spiritual hunger is far greater than it was 8 months ago. You see, we can rest assured that there is never a trial. There is never a hardship that goes to waste. God is always at work in the background doing something to set the stage for his glory and honor, and Daniel knew that, and that is where Daniel found his confidence. With that foundation of faith, he was able to survive and thrive in Babylon, even when he faced injustice. He may have questioned why God would allow bad things to happen. We all have that freedom, but he was confident that God was doing something bigger. So what is it? What do you find comfort in God's sovereignty? Or do you struggle to see how he can be alive and active when you look around the world? Have you been able to see God at work behind painful circumstances in your life, or have you been the victim of tragedy? Today I want to do something that I've really never done before, and I want to share with you guys a piece of my Babylon in my life and how now I can see God through it. Whew. So the first time I witnessed the evil this world had to offer, I was a toddler. I was the same age as my precious little girl is now. I was about 3 years old. I was innocent and I was pure. And a man took that from me through sexually abusing me in ways I cannot to this day talk about to the full extent. That pain still lingers and creeps back into my every being. Even though I was so young, I can tell you what the room looked like, the walls, the carpet. These are things that when you go through a tragedy, you remember. Fast forward, now 15. Boom. Another male in my life assaulted me sexually. This time, it was someone who was like a brother to me. So here I am, 15, and I'm just completely dead inside. Broken, lost, numb. So I figured, this world's an ugly place and I don't want to be here. The world would be a better place without me. I thought the pain I suffered inside was forever etched into my soul, and there was no way I could ever be happy, and I tried to take my own life. The last thing I remember the night that I tried to take my own life is I remember seeing my brother's face. That's it. Woke up in the hospital, and I stayed there for a while. After a long extent at the hospital at 15 years old, I went home, and although I was better, I was still numb. For over 20 years after that, I could hide my pain, but hiding it is all I did. I could numb myself with many things that I am not proud of. I could surround myself with a godless culture, but that resulted in nothing but more pain and zero healing. But then I found Jesus. And by the grace of God and the truth of his word, I have been set free, and the Lord delivered me. In my suffering, I've been able to help others, including my own child. And this is where it's going to get tough because I've never spoke this out loud. Sorry. I've spent my entire life as a mom swearing to protect my children from the evil that this world has to offer. But sometimes that evil is out of our control. It's about 5-6 years ago, we opened our home to a man that we trusted. It was a family member, and he was with us for a short time. It was about 3 months that he was with us. We were helping him get on his feet. I fed him. I brought him to church with us. I opened my home, and I trusted him with my most precious children. In that 3 months, I noticed a huge shift in my son. He has, by the way, given me full permission to tell his story today. I wouldn't do it without his permission. I noticed my happy, loving child go from always hugging me to literally jumping if I went in to hug him. Something shifted, and I knew something was wrong. Come to find out, the man that we had allowed in our home and trusted was abusing our son. In violent rages, he would hit him with extension cords. He would beat him. He would choke him. He would wake him up, punching him in his head. My son told me during one of his violent attacks, he truly thought he was not going to live through it. He was told that if he told, he would die. He feared for his life in the one place that our children should feel safe. So he hid. He hid his pain, he hid his bruises, and he hid his suffering. This man we trusted stole our son's innocence, and he took my once joyful son and made him feel fear, feel worthless, like he deserved it, like there was no hope left for him to recover, and even worse, he made him question, where is my God? It has taken my son years to recover, but he is back to my loving son. Just in the last year alone, I have been able to run and hug him if I want, and he doesn't jump unless it's like awkward. And I thank God so much for allowing him to not just heal, but to share his story so others can grasp that bad things happen to good people. My son's words to me just this last week when we were sitting and we were talking about his experience and that I was going to share his story today. And just this last week, his words to me were that he trusts the path God has laid before him, and even though he may not understand why he had to go through his suffering, he did. He trusts God and his plan for him. You hear that? He trusts. He trusts God's plan for him, even in the darkest moments of his life. He trusts. Bad things happen to people. Christians are not. Bad things happen because we live in a world that is filled with evil. You may be asking, well, Shannon, where is God in all that evil? For me, God, I believe, the pain and suffering that I had to go through, he was preparing me to help my son. Through his pain and through his suffering, because of my sufferings, I could be strong. I could understand, because let me tell you, as an abuse victim, you don't want to hear from people that really, truly don't understand what you're going through. I could help my son when he needed me and bring him through the storm with the grace and the truth that we find only through him and him alone. For my son, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure yet why he had to endure that pain. And yes, I've questioned it. Of course I have. I'm human. I've had many days of anger and pain for him. But God never promised us a life of no pain and no suffering. But he did promise us peace and hope and a life of happiness in eternity with him if we just trust in him alone. So maybe you're here today and you've suffered abuse mentally, physically, sexually. They are all one in the same. None is different from the other, because what they do is they break you and they make you question your worth. Or maybe a loved one received a fatal diagnosis, or your marriage is broken, or you lost your kids, or you lost your family. You have had a child in a dark place and you don't know how to save them. Or maybe someone has hurt your child. Whatever your circumstances, whatever you are facing, God will take that most painful circumstance and he will use it for his glory. You have to trust him and allow him into your heart and allow him to play out your pain for your purpose and the plans that he has for you. One of the number one tools that Satan uses to stop you from fulfilling your plans and purposes that God has planned in your life is he tries to get you to buy into a false identity of who you are. That you're worthless. That it's all your fault you were abused. Or you're suffering. That you're nothing, not strong enough, not worthy enough. You are a child of God. You are. You have to know your worth, know you're loved, know you're accepted, know you're forgiven, and know you are saved by the grace of God, and lean into his truth. And when you do that, church, when you do that, the Lord will and can deliver you from any hurt, from any suffering, from any pain. All you got to do is trust Him. Trust the journey. Trust the path He has planned for you. Trust it. So how do we stand firm when bad things happen? How do we thrive and not just survive in a godless culture? How do we do that? You have a faith like Daniel, and you trust God, and you love unbelievably well. You share your story, and you never, ever give up hope. Let me assure you, in our pain and suffering, God is with you. For what breaks your heart also breaks His. Just like I'm broken because my child was hurt, you also are hurting God when you are broken. He is broken. It's only Him that can deliver you and can set you free. Only Him. In talking to my son this week, one of the things that he shared with me is that music helped him get through his time of pain and suffering. That was one of the things he did, is and he can sing. I'm trying to get his butt up here. He can sing. But music helped him get through that. So church, today, if you are watching at home, turn your TVs up. Church, stand on your feet and worship our God. Thank you.
Here's to hoping nothing cuts out again.
Nothing can separate. Even if I ran away, your love never fails. I know I still make mistakes, but you have new mercy for me every day, and your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. The wind is strong and the water's deep, but I'm not alone here in these open seas, 'cause your love never fails. The chasm was far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. You make all things work together for me. my good. Yes, he does. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Oh no, your love never fails. And now a quick word from Tom King, all the way in
At the Wallace's cabin, and it's our leadership retreat weekend up here. So, bringing you the message from the beautiful lake that's right here in front of us. And I was sharing with the guys what I think of when we come up here, and that's that we're out here fishing, and sometimes we catch fish and sometimes we don't. But I want to share with you what happens for me. As we're out here fishing and we don't catch any fish, we come back. It's like the story in the Bible where Jesus went to the Sea of Galilee after the guys had been fishing all night and hadn't caught any fish, but they had a lot of fun. They got to have guy time together and talk about everything going on. And as they fished all night with their nets and didn't catch anything, they were heading back in the morning, and there was this guy on the shore who said, "Hey, did you guys catch any fish?" And they're like, "No, but we had a lot of fun with each other, and we built up some good memories." And he says, "Throw your net on the other side. Throw your net on the right side of the boat." And they're like, "Well, there's no fish there. We didn't catch any." And so they finally said, okay. They put the net over the side, and they had so many fish. They couldn't even pull the net into the boat because it was getting ready to tip the boat over. And that was Jesus who was performing a miracle, showing them what he could do. And as we think about miracles, that's one of the great miracles, but the greatest miracle of all was that there was a baby who came to earth, who grew up amongst us. He walked amongst us. He walked on this earth. And he was performing miracles, and he was doing teaching and loving and showing us everything that he could. And the last thing that he did, the greatest miracle of all, was that he gave his life on the cross to ensure that we would have a place to go to forever. He said he would come back for us. And that is the greatest miracle, that he died, and 3 days later he arose from the grave. Well, I believe that you're probably a believer, and you know these miracles because you have miracles that happen to you every day, whatever they are. And if you're not a believer, we would sure love you to join us. So, with communion now, there's a glass that represents Christ's blood that was spilled for us, and there's a cracker that represents his body that was broken for us, and that was on the cross while he was performing his final miracle. And as you partake of those, in remembrance of him, in remembrance of all the miracles that he performed then and what he's doing now, I just ask you to reflect on that And if you're not a believer, reach out to somebody next to you and ask them, how do you become a believer? The person next to you will be glad to share with you. And if you are looking for prayer, come on to the back corner back there. There'll be a staff person back there that will pray with you. And we just love you guys. Let me close in prayer. And Father, we just come to you and we thank you for all that you do, Father. You perform miracles every day, Father. You had the greatest miracles that we saw, Father, that we've read about. And Father, as we come to this table today, Father, we ask that you would just show us things that we need to straighten out. Father, help us if we're broken. Father, pick us up and dust us off. Put us on the right path. Father, help us to just keep loving one another. Father, we just thank you for all that you do. And we thank you for your sacrifice for us, Father, that great miracle. We love you and we thank you. And we pray these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Search the world. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. And then you came along and put me back together. Desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Now I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. But the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. Place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Lord, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. God, there's nothing. Nothing is Now, Tom talked about one great miracle, and that was the miracle of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, and the all-encompassing miracle that was his life. And Shannon talked about how we're not called to live this perfect life where everything is right and rosy. We go through intense bouts of pain and sadness, epic moments in our life that seem for the worst. But she just told us that sometimes those are for the best. Like her pain, which then forthright went forward, gave her the ability to help others. Our God is a God of miracles and of life-changing miracles. And just like his life was a miracle, your life is too. Sometimes those epic moments of pain become a miracle in somebody else's life. You guys sing this bridge with me. It's all about those life-changing miracles. You ready? You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who cares. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who cares. You turn grace into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who cares. You're the only one who cares. Lord, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. God, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Turns morning to dancing. You turn morning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who cares. You turn grace into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who cares. He's the only one who cares. You're the only one who
All right, my friends, whatever. Hello? Last distraction. All right, my friends, whatever Babylon you are walking through, remember that you are not alone, and no hardship goes unnoticed by God, and no hardship doesn't have a plan. No hardship doesn't have a plan. Every hardship has a plan, is what I meant to say. If you're feeling some type of way today, do not leave this room without going into the corner and talking with one of our pastors back there, or go meeting Shannon in the Welcome Center. Obviously, football games can wait. Seahawks are going to win anyway. Bears are going to, NASCAR can wait, okay? But what you're feeling right now can't wait. So if you're feeling some type of way, come talk to us. Talk to your neighbor if they feel comfortable. Thanks for being a part of our family today. Have a great one.